Hey guys, Larry here, and for today's video, I'm going to talk about one buff I'd give every single character in Smash Ultimate. A lot of the buffs I'll be suggesting are just improving one thing about the move, while for others I might talk about reworking the attack, and for very few characters, I'll talk about changing their mobility stats. Before you watch the video, drop a comment making a guess on which character you think I'll give the biggest buff to, and which one I'm going to give the smallest one to. Also, don't forget to like the video for the YouTube algorithm, but with that out of the way, let's get started. To start off the list, we have Mario, and he doesn't need any crazy buffs, but I feel like I gave him one anyways. It's going to be that when he gets his Sour Spot Fair, instead of getting that weak one he normally gets, it would be Dr. Mario's forward air. So if you've played PM, it's basically that. He's going to have PM Mario Fair. Alright, next up we have Donkey Kong, and I'm sure a lot of you probably guessed that I'm gonna give him his old cargo throw up throw back, the one he had in Smash 4, but no, I did not do that. Instead, I gave him his Smash 4 Jab 1, which, if you didn't know, Tipper Jab 1 comboed into Grab, so in Ultimate, DK would have a lot of crazy combos. One I'm thinking of is that he'd be able to do Tipper Jab 1 into his down tilts, and then loop it back into another Tipper Jab 1, so yeah, I think that's a lot better. For Link, there were quite a few things I was thinking about buffing, but I think one of the best things he could get is a better dash attack, specifically his old melee / brawl dash attack back, because that one would be great in Ultimate. He'd be able to combo off of it, and I think that would make the move a lot more usable. Alright, so for Samus, there is one thing I see a lot of Samus players complain about, and it is how inconsistently up smash connects. It's to the point that I know a lot of Samus players will intentionally not do it in fear that the opponent will fall out of it. So the buff I'd give Samus is make it so that the up smash much more consistently connects. So I think it was in Ultimate where they changed Yoshi's hitbox so that it starts slightly higher in front of him, and because of that, he can't hit shorter characters in front of him with up tilt. So my buff would be to change it back to what it was before, hitbox wise, so he can hit shorter characters in front of him. Kirby is an interesting one because I feel like he has a lot of really good moves already, and I feel like giving him one solid buff either doesn't do much for him or will make him overly rely on the move. So I decided to go with buffing his airspeed since it's horrendous combined with his floaty fall speed. I didn't buff it too much just so he would be on par with Pit. I was debating buffing his down air to be more like a 64 down air, but I think that would be too broken. But let me know in the comments what you think. If you know who I am and have seen me play Smash 4, you could probably guess what I'm gonna buff. If not, I'll just tell you, I'm gonna buff his up tilt so that it hits ledge again like he did in Smash 4. Fox being able to do that was ridiculous, but I don't care, I miss it, and that's what I would buff. For Pikachu, I know this was buffed already, but I would once again buff his forward air because it still doesn't connect as well as it should in my opinion, so I would just make it so it does. The buff I would give Luigi is give him a Cyclone that actually goes higher when he mashes the B button like it did in the previous games. I'm not saying it's going to go as high as it did in the previous games, but maybe like around Dr. Mario's height. That way he has more mix-ups and just a better recovery in general. Having that would also buff his Cyclone as a kill move, so that's another positive, I guess, for Luigi players. The buff I would give Ness is to his PK Thunder recovery. I'd make it so that as long as Ness is near the hitbox, even if he hits the opponent, the attack won't disappear, so he can always recover as long as he's near the attack. For Falcon, I would buff his turnaround dash. I believe Falcon has the worst turnaround dash in the entire game, even worse than Mewtwo's, which is weird, but yeah, that would be my buff for him. I would just get rid of it so that it's not nearly as bad. For Jigglypuff, I'd buff her up throw so that it's a combo throw at very low percents. I would make it so that she can get up throw into her aerials, but I wouldn't want her to be able to get up throw rest kill combos. For Peach and Daisy, I would buff their forward air, giving it the knockback it had before patch 3.1.0. I'm gonna be completely honest and say I didn't know what to buff on Bowser, so I just decided to give his fair slightly less end lag. I think that would be good because it would give him more pressure options, and it would probably give him more combos as well. I think this is easily the biggest buff I'm gonna give any character, but let me know in the comments if you think it is or not. The buff I'm gonna give Ice Climbers is make it so that Nana, aka the AI, can grab again. So for Sheik, the buff I decided to give her is I'm going to give her her old Smash 4 down throw. So with this, it will be easier for her to combo down throw into up air. She could probably get more drag down combos on platform stages, and I think it just makes it easier for her to close out stocks. So initially, I was thinking of buffing Zelda's grab because it has good range, but it's just really slow compared to other grabs. But then I thought, you know what, why not just buff her down tilt? It's already a really good move and we could just make it ridiculous. So the buff I decided on is giving it 5 less frames of lag. That will make it a lot safer on shield, and it'll also give it a bigger combo window. Dr. Mario is actually the character that inspired me to make this video to begin with. So the thing I would buff with him is his up B. I would make it go the same distance as Mario's, and I honestly think with that, he would become a really good character. For Pichu, there's a lot of things I could have given him back as a buff, but the one I decided on was his old 4 tilt before he got nerfed in patch 3.1.0. The buff I would give Falco is I would make it so that when he up throws, the laser always connects. That would make him so much better because there's so many times when you up throw the opponent and they DI and avoid the laser and he can't get a follow up anymore. Marth struggling to land tippers as easily as he can in other games has really hurt him competitively. So the buff I would give him is make it easier for him to land the tipper part of his side B. That would give him a much more consistent kill move that he can use. For Lucina, I would just give her pre-patch forward smash back. Young Link is the only Link that doesn't have a downer that spikes, which is funny because his downer spiked in melee, and to my knowledge he was the first Link to have a downer that spiked. So the buff I would give him is give him back his downer spike hitbox, which might be a ridiculous buff because he might be able to get some crazy kill confirms off stage with that, and then he might be able to also just do crazy tech chase combos, I don't know, but that would be the buff. It's no secret that Ganon is horrendous in Ultimate and most Smash games. And one of the reasons why he's so bad in Ultimate is that he doesn't have any good kill confirms. He has great kill power, but he doesn't have a reliable way to combo into those attacks. So the buff I would give him is give him a combo throw that he can use at kill percent, which would be his up throw. I would make it so that he could do up throw into forward air, back air, or any of his aerials. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised about what the buff on Mewtwo is going to be. If I could give him any buff, I would remove his tail hurt box. The buff I would give Roy is I would make his counter have slightly less end lag. This would make it more usable off stage and make it easier for Roy players to avoid SDing when using counter to edgeguard recoveries. Alright, so this buff is probably obvious to a lot of people, but the buff I'm going to give Chrom is I'm going to change his up B. Instead of him having an Ike-esque up B, I'm going to give him an up B that's more similar to Marth and Lucina's. You're probably thinking, why don't I just give him Roy's? But Marth and Lucina have a better recovery, and Lucina and him both use the same sword. I mean, that's father-daughter, so why not just give him the same up B? One of the most unnecessary buffs, I'll make it so that Game & Watch's down tilt can hit aerial opponents. So I think this buff would be really good for Meta Knight, and it's that he gets his Smash 4 up B back. So if you don't know, in Ultimate, they kind of nerfed his up B. They made it so that the first hit has set knockback and the second hit is slightly stronger, but still not as strong as it was in Smash 4. It also kind of has more end lag, so it's easier to punish. The buff would basically make it so that Meta Knight kills earlier, and he's also harder to punish. For Pit and Dark Pit, the buff I would give them is make their Dare Spike stronger. I don't know why it's that weak to begin with, like it's horrible. For Zero Suit, I would change back the nerf they did to her neutral air, so her neutral air would be safer on shield and it would also be easier to combo out of. The buff I would give Wario is make it so that his Nair 1 and 2 connect more consistently into each other. That may not seem like that big of a buff, but it really is. There's a lot of matchups that Wario has that he struggles in strictly because Nair 1 and 2 don't connect that well. Just him having that gives him more ways to confirm in the waft. Snake definitely doesn't need a buff, but I would just give him back his pre-patch Nikita. For me, what to buff on Ike was obvious, and that was to give him back his pre-patch Nair. For Squirtle, I really didn't know what to buff. I feel like I could have given him his Brawl down throw, which is an insanely strong kill throw, but I decided to go with buffing his up smash and make it a stronger kill move since it's surprisingly weak. What to buff on Ivysaur, however, was pretty easy. I decided to go with giving her back her pre-patch down air. Charizard's was also pretty easy, which is to give him back his Smash 4 up tilt, which is a much better combo tool and could be a kill move at high percents. definitely an unneeded buff, but for Diddy Kong, I would give him his Smash 4 forward air hitbox. I think this would be massive for Lucas, and it would be to give him his Smash 4 down throw. With this, his combos are going to be a lot more consistent. He'll actually have a combo throw at higher percents, and probably a kill confirm out of it. Yet another unneeded buff, but for Sonic, I would make it so that his homing attack hits the opponent more consistently. For DDD, I would give him back his Brawl back air, and with that, I think he would actually be not a bottom tier. For Olimar, I would revert his forward smash back to what it was before patch 3.1.0. Lucario's an interesting one because I feel like you can buff certain moves, but at the end of the day, the most important thing to buff about him is aura. So the buff I would pick is so that he starts off with some aura, like as if he took 30% of damage, and then just add or subtract from there. So if he has a lead or a deficit, aura increases or decreases based off of that. Rob already has everything you would want in a character. The only thing holding him back is his size, so the buff I would give him is make him have a slightly smaller hurt box. The buff I would give Toon Link is I would reduce the end lag of his Zair in the air. This would make it so that it's easier for him to edge guard the opponent with it, and if your Zair doesn't grab the ledge, you can still recover with a B or another option. So for Wolf, I could have reverted one of his moves back to what they were in a previous patch, but what I decided to do was make it so that when he does Wolf Flash, he doesn't go into free fall. This would make it more like PM Wolf's, except his recovery would also be a lot better. The buff I would give Villager is I would make his up special more like it was in Smash 4. This would make it harder for him to get edge guarded. The buff I would give Mega Man is I would revert his Leaf Shield back to what it was before patch 3.0. So his Leaf Shield will have less startup, less end lag, and he'll be able to cancel Leaf Shield in different ways using item toss. For Wii Fit Trainer, I would decrease the knockback growth on up throw. I would make it so that she could do up throw into upper as a kill confirm more consistently when she has deep breathing. For Rosa, I think the best buff she can get is to improve Luma in some ways. So the buff I would give her is to make Luma more like Smash 4 Luma so that when she gets hit, it's harder to put him into tumble. I feel bad for Lil Mac. He's one of those characters that's really bad, yet he somehow gets nerfed. Or if he does get buffed, they'll change the buffs back to what they were before. But anyways, the buff I would give Lil Mac is that when he uses his side B off stage and he gets hit, he can use the side B again. The buff I would give Greninja is make it so that his up smash hits much more consistently. There's been so many matches where I see Greninja hit the first hit of up smash and then the opponent just doesn't get hit by the second hit. Now we have the Miis. So for them, I decided not to buff any of their special moves. For Mii Brawler, I would make it so that his forward smash has less end lag. For Gunner, I would make it so that when they do forward air, they zoom further back like they did in Smash 4. And for Mii's Sword Fighter, I would make it so that his up tilt has the same amount of end lag as Toon Link's. Palu has gotten a lot of things nerfed, so there is a lot of things I could have just decided to change back to what they were before, and the one I landed on is her neutral air, so I would give her back her pre-patch neutral air before it got nerfed. The buff I would give Pac-Man is to make the first hit of his up smash a bigger hitbox, so it's easier for him to scoop in opponents. For Robin, I would make it so that he starts with 11 sword. I don't know why that wasn't even a thing to begin with. For Shulk, I will give him back his Smash 4 back air hitbox. If you don't know what his back air was in Smash 4, it's the same thing except the hitbox starts in front of him. For Bowser Jr., I'd buff his grab so that it has 2 or 3 less frames of startup. It's sad because he has similar startup frames of characters that have tether grabs, but he has way less range than them. I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't even know this is a problem that Duck Hunt has. The Duck on Duck Hunt is a hurt box, so my buff to him would be to remove that hurt box. This would make him so much better because there are so many attacks where he uses the Duck to attack and the opponent could just hit that and hit him. For Ryu, I kind of didn't know what to buff, but then I looked at his neutral air hitbox, and the Sour Spot hitbox is horrendous compared to the Sweet Spot, so my buff to him would just make the Sour Spot hitbox the same size as the Sweet Spot. Ken for me was a lot more obvious. The buff I would give him is make it so that you can't SDI out of or fall out of a Shoryuken hitbox. This would definitely be an unnecessary buff for Cloud, but I would choose to give him back his Smash 4 Nair hitbox because why not? With the recent rise of Corin, I don't really think the character needs that big of a buff, but what I would do is make it so that up throw kills a little bit earlier. Bayonetta has gotten a lot of nerfs and changes coming from Smash 4 to Ultimate, so there's a lot of things I could have buffed or made back to how they were before. But I decided to do none of those things and just buff her forward tilt because I like how the move looks and I wish it was more usable in her toolkit. So my buff would be to have it have less knockback growth and less end lag, so it's just easier to combo out of. The buff I decided on for Inkling is to make down throw a better combo throw. So my idea would be that Inkling could use down throw into forward air or back air at high percents near the ledge to close out stocks. I think it would give Inkling a lot more kill variety and just make them a much better character. The buff I'd give Ridley is to just make him a heavier character. He's so massive and yet he's significantly lighter than the other heavyweights. So I would make him the same weight as King Diddy and Donkey Kong. That is a massive jump in weight. So I don't know, that could be a huge buff for him. My buff to the Belmonts would be to increase their grab range. To my knowledge, they overall have the worst grab in the entire game. It has the least amount of range and it's also slower than the average grab. So that would be my buff to them. The buff I would give K-Rool is make it so that he's the only character that can throw his crown. I'm honestly surprised they didn't change that to begin with. So the buff I would give Isabelle is probably one that Isabelle players dream that she had, and it is that the fishing rod is a command grab and not a hit grab. So Incineroar's recovery is pretty bad, but it's probably worse than you think. When he does up special and he rises up, he does have armor. The armor doesn't even last for like half the amount of time he's rising up. And to make it even worse, it's damage based armor, so it's not even super armor. So if your move does enough damage, you can break the armor. My buff to Incineroar would be to make it so that his up special has super armor and make it so that he has armor throughout the entire time he's rising up. Believe it or not, Piranha Plant is one of my favorite characters and one of the characters I was most excited to see added to the roster. What? And because of this, the buff I would give Piranha Plant is make it so that when he does Nair, it auto cancels. This would give him Paulo-esque combo routes and just make him a much better character. The buff I would give Joker is make it so that his Rebellion gauge works like it did before patch 7.0, so he'll be able to use Arsene longer. The buff I'd give Banjo is to reduce the knockback on his up air so it becomes a better combo move. I did think about giving him unlimited Wonder Wings, but I feel like that would just be way too broken and toxic. For Terry, the buff I would give him is make it so that his down smash can hit below the ledge. He does have down tilt that can hit some characters that hang below ledge, but it doesn't work on everyone, so a lot of characters can just hang on ledge and plank against Terry. So my buff would be to make it so that he has a stronger answer to deal with that. For Byleth, I would buff the tipper part of their side special, making it kill about 20% sooner. For Min Min, I would remove the nerf she got on her neutral air, so this would make her neutral air safer on shield and also give her better combos.
Boo! You stink!
Alright, so obviously most of the people watching this don't want Steve buffed, but the video is one buff for every character, so I'm gonna do it. The buff I would give Steve is make it so that his wood tools have more durability, so it's harder for them to break. The buff I'll give Sephiroth is that once Wing is out, it will not disappear until he loses his stock. Next up, we have Pyra and Mythra. So for Pyra, I'd buff her up B hitbox so it's more similar to Mythra's, making it harder to gimp her. And for Mythra, when she uses her neutral special in the air, she'll float more similar to Pyra. That way she has better options to avoid getting edge guarded, and also she can use it more to edge guard the opponent. I think the buff that I would give Kazia is my favorite one that I've come up with. So for Kazia, when he does his side taunt, I would make it a stronger kill move so it can kill opponents like around 170-180%, depending on character weight. Last but not least, we have Sora, and the buff I would give him is make it so that you can't fall out of his counter. And that is it for the video. Not gonna lie, that took longer than I thought it would, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to drop the like. And if you don't want to miss any Smash content I make sure to subscribe to my channel. Also, if you want to support me more, I have a Patreon. It'll be linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.